Living intentionally often focuses on decluttering, simplifying, owning less, and creating space for what matters most. But there's one part of living intentionally that doesn't get nearly as much attention, and that is career fulfillment. See, so many of us are working jobs that drain our energy, they don't align with our values, and they leave us feeling unfulfilled, yet we continue to push forward because it's paying the bills. And so we start telling ourselves, well, if I work harder, if I wait for the right opportunity, then eventually things will improve. But in reality, when something is draining your energy, no amount of effort will make it feel right. And to be frank, no one is coming to save you, right? Everyone is too busy living their own life, making their own decisions, and trying to avoid regret. And so that's why pivoting your career, if you feel unfulfilled, is a critical part of living intentionally. And I don't understand why this is ignored, why it doesn't get the attention it deserves. See, what most people don't talk about when they speak of intentional living is the role work plays in how fulfilling our lives feel. And in many ways, I believe our work has a greater impact on our life in comparison to how clutter-free our homes are or feel. And I'll tell you why. Nearly 2 years ago now, wow, it's been 2 years, but nearly 2 years ago now, I walked away from my corporate job after an 8-year commitment. And leaving wasn't easy, right? I had several moments of thinking I was crazy for pivoting and walking away from a quote unquote good job with good benefits, right? You know, the self-doubt, the second guessing, the self-criticism, I experienced all of it. But when I finally made that shift and walked away from something that was unfulfilling and towards something that was, the weight that lifted off my shoulders felt like a breath of fresh air after almost drowning. You know, this reminds me of something a member of Clarity Lab shared recently because it was so relatable. They shared how they finally decided to let go of a job that wasn't the right fit and was depleting their energy, and how they're now learning new skills and figuring out what works and what doesn't work for them. Now, when this person first joined the lab back in March, this was something that they were just thinking about, right? Like so many of us do. We just think about these things. But now, a little over 2 months later, they're making it happen, right? They made the decision to pivot and figure out what matters to them, what they really want. And that's what it means to live intentionally, right? It goes beyond decluttering the unused and unneeded items in our home. It goes beyond a well-organized space. It goes beyond doing less and saying no to a calendar full of half-interesting commitments. It's about aligning both your personal and professional life with your deepest values, with the things that matter most to you. Now, the reason I brought this up and expressed how relatable this member's journey is because many of us can empathize with the feeling of being stuck, whether that's in a job or a relationship or some other aspect of our life. And we all know what it's like to go down that rabbit hole of constantly thinking and not doing anything about it, right? We're always stuck in our head, but we're not taking action. And I get it. You know, sometimes it's tough. You know, it's tough to admit when something isn't working anymore, especially when you've put so much into it, so much time, so much attention, so much emotional currency, financially, you've invested so much into the situation. It's hard to step back and say, you know what, this isn't working. I have to change something. Maybe it's time for me to pivot. But at the same time, staying stuck isn't the answer either. And so at some point you have to make that decision and say, you know what, today's the day that I'm going to pivot, make a change and take action. So how do you know when it's time to pivot? You know, when I look back on my career progression, there are 3 things that I've experienced in waves. And since pivoting, I've learned that these experiences are pretty common among most professionals, even though it can feel like you're the only one going through it, right? And so if you're experiencing any of these signs, then it may be time to pivot. Number 1, you're constantly tired but can't rest. If you're waking up already feeling drained, even after a full night's sleep, that's your body telling you that something needs to change. And what we usually do in moments like this is we default to thinking that we need more sleep. And so we start telling ourselves, well, you know what? I'm going to go to bed an hour earlier tonight. Maybe a good night's rest will help me feel better tomorrow. And then I can go ahead and push through the rest of this week, right? If only it was that simple, right? So like I said, it's not about needing more sleep. It's about recognizing that your life or your current situation, your job is draining your energy. And when you're drained like this, no amount of pushing through, no amount of sleep is going to make that moment feel better. It's going to fix the situation, right? And so when I look back on my experience, for example, I remember all the mornings I would wake up and go through my routine and getting dressed for the office and already feeling over it, already exhausted, already tired. Here we go with this again, right? That was my energy telling me, saying, hey, listen, I know you have responsibilities to take care of. I know you like consistency, but we got to switch something up here. What we're doing right now isn't working. It's draining you. We got to change something. And so if this is hitting home, if you feel like you're constantly tired, if you're exhausted all the time, even if you get 8 hours of sleep, 9 hours of sleep, you're exhausted all the time. You're over it. Here we go again. Another day of this. Don't ignore that. That's your body. That's your energy telling you that something needs to change. Number 2, your work feels disconnected from your values. Now, if you're spending hours on something that doesn't align with who you are or what you believe in, that creates a disconnect that's hard to ignore. And so if your career, if your job, if your work doesn't align with your values, then it's going to start to feel like you're living two different lives, where one feels very performative, like you have to show up and perform. And then the other half of your life feels like you. It feels authentic. It feels natural. That creates a disconnect that's hard to ignore. And it's also emotionally exhausting, emotionally draining, right? Sometimes this can be referred to as code switching, right? And so if you feel like every time you walk into the office or walk into work, you have to code switch and all of a sudden you have to perform and pretend, it doesn't feel like you. You can't be yourself. It's not aligned with the things that are important to you. You feel like it's not giving you the time to prioritize the things that are important to you. There's constantly a conflict. It's a tug of war. That creates a disconnect that's hard to ignore. All right. And I'll give you an example. Before I quit my corporate job, I noticed that with every promotion I received, even though it came with new challenges, it came with, new responsibilities, it came with more money, I noticed myself drifting, or like I was being pulled further and further away from my core values. And in particular, the core value that I felt was disconnected the most was creativity. And so about 8 months or so before I decided to walk away completely, I transitioned into a new career. And the roles of this career was all about managing the product photography and special projects like that for the division of the company that I was in. And so immediately when I stepped into that role, it infused that missing piece for me. It was filled with creativity. It was product photography. It was application photography. It was the things that I was missing in the other roles that I had been in previously. But there were other aspects of my life that were still lacking. My wife and I started growing our family. We started having kids. And so prioritizing family, which is another core value of mine, felt like it was slipping. I was spending more time at the office than at home. I was missing key moments of my son's early childhood. And so that didn't sit well with me. That was a disconnect that was hard to ignore. And so I took a leap of faith, made a change, decided to pivot so that way I can prioritize the things that are important to me. So that way my career can align with my core values in a way that felt right for me. And so again, if you can relate to this, if this is resonating with you in any way, if you feel like some aspect of your career is disconnected from the things that are important to you, please do not ignore that. Don't wait until it's too late to make that change, to start prioritizing the things that are important to you. If you feel that disconnection, if things are not aligning in a way that feels right for you, it's time to make a pivot. Number 3, you're stuck in the same routine with no growth. If you've been doing the same thing for several years and there's no room for growth, there's no room for new challenges, new responsibilities, you don't see space for a promotion, then that's a clear sign that you need to explore something new. It means you're plateauing professionally, and that is not a place you want to be in, right? No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to hand you an opportunity. You have to grab life by the reins and make those decisions and pivot when it's time to pivot, right? Stagnation is the clearest sign that change is overdue. And so, like I said, if you've been doing the same thing day after day, year after year, if you've been stuck in the same position, if you've applied for promotions, but they're not coming through, if you're asking for more responsibility, but it's not being given to you, if you're looking for new challenges, new opportunities for growth, but they're not there, it's time to make a change. All right. And I'll take this a step further. Maybe you're already doing something outside of your current day job, outside of your main thing, that is energizing you more than your main job, that is providing those opportunities for growth, for challenge, more than your main job. Maybe you're already doing something that isn't your main job, and this is the time to pivot and make that your main thing, to start prioritizing that more, to take that side thing more seriously, because it's fulfilling you more than the thing that you're already giving so much of yourself to. All right. And so whichever is true for you, if it's something you're already doing that is energizing you more and it's time to pivot into that, or if you're just feeling stuck, there's no opportunity for growth, no opportunity for challenges, no opportunity for growth, for anything in your current job, take a step back and pivot. Now, recognizing these signs is only half the battle. The other half is doing something about it. And when you do, you'll feel more energized. You will experience a new sense of purpose, and you'll wake up feeling excited because you're finally aligned with what matters most to you. Make sense? Now, if you're serious about pivoting your career, if you're serious about finding career fulfillment, if you're not watching this just to pass time, just because you need something to do, if you're serious about committing to living intentionally, both personally and professionally, then here's how you do it, right? The first thing is all about gaining clarity. And the first piece of that is, okay, what is draining my energy? Asking yourself, what is draining my energy? What aspects of my current job, my current career are draining my energy? And then the second piece of that, of clarity, is, okay, what are my core values? What aspects of life or career or a job interest me? What excites me? What do I want to do? What's important to me? What aligns with my values, right? So part A is what is draining you. And part B is, okay, what are my core values and what do I want to do? What aspects of a career or a job excite me and bring me that energy? Once you have that clarity, once you've identified those two things, then it's about stepping back and taking action. Okay. And it's about taking small steps, right? Pivoting your career is not something that happens overnight. It's a journey. All right. When I made the decision to walk away from my job, I didn't do it the moment I thought about it. It didn't happen the next day either. But I took the time to make that decision and to make sure I had all my ducks in a row. And that means, okay, learning the skills that you need to learn. Maybe that's networking. Maybe that's seeking out new opportunities, getting on the phone and asking that clarifying question to see if that's something that's feasible for you. It's thinking about the financial side of things. Okay, what do the finances look like? Do I have any money saved if this doesn't work out? What does that look like in terms of saving, in terms of investments, in terms of healthcare and the benefits? If I have a family, how am I going to take care of that part of the family as well? It's thinking about all of these things and pivoting one step at a time. Now, I do want to caution you. Don't wait forever to pivot. Okay, don't make the mistake that I made. It took me 2 years to actually pivot. From the moment I thought about it to the moment I made the decision. Don't wait that long. That's entirely too long. Trust me. But you don't want it to happen overnight either. You want to be intentional about these things. You want to use wisdom, right? You don't want to jump into something that you don't know the details about. But I'm encouraging you, if you feel unfulfilled in your career, if you're serious about living an intentional life, it's time to pivot. And I want you to pivot. All right. Keep growing in your journey, my friend. Keep learning. I'll leave it there for today, but keep growing in your journey, my friend. Keep learning. And always remember to stay true to you.